are these people?
I want to get into our weekly Fuck Israel segment, so I don't know if you did have time to edit the soundboard. I'm going to jump into the first part of Fuck Israel. Nice. Yeah. Fuck Israel. So we had the update that we did not want to see on Monday, I think it was. This was actually Thursday. But when we were here last week, Reef reported that, oh my goodness, it looks like he's on a list to get out. Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya. We've been talking about this man all year long. That he worked at Kamal Adwan Hospital, and he was operating, and they literally ordered him out of the hospital, and he got into the tank to talk to the soldiers and has not been seen since, other than maybe a photo or two. But he's been in a torture prison for the last 10 months. And we were hoping that with the quote unquote ceasefire, and I said it last week, until this man is free, it's bullshit. It's not really a ceasefire. They're holding on to over 100 doctors and medical personnel because they certainly don't want to unleash a wave of people who could actually rehabilitate the people that have been injured and hurt by bombs. They also are stopping aid from going back in now. They're claiming that Hamas violated the ceasefire, which is hilarious because they never did ceasefire. But I want to read this because this is important. The family of Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya confirms that the Israeli court has extended his administrative detention for another 6 months, despite his name having been previously appearing on those discussed for release. The family expresses deep concern over his continued detention and reaffirms full trust in the legal team, don't know why, and all humanitarian efforts working toward his freedom. The family also calls on relevant institutions, human rights organizations, and the negotiating parties to actively address his case and work toward his immediate release, which we've been doing for a long time now. Free Dr. Abu Safiya. And there's plenty of people posting graphics and hashtags and the like. So the first article I brought was a story called The Infuriating Case of Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya from a publication called Palestine Will Be Free. Subscribe to them, support independent media. All right. On Thursday, an Israeli kangaroo court extended Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya's detention in Israel's rape and torture dungeons. Yes, they're rape and torture dungeons. And there's a link there with documentation there for another 6 months. Kidnapped from his hospital on December 27, 2024, for not giving in to Israeli demands to shut it down and go home, Dr. Abu Safiya has been languishing in the occupation's notorious hellholes ever since. At the time of Dr. Abu Safiya's abduction from Kamal Adwan Hospital, the last one functioning in northern Gaza at the time, after a months-long Israeli attempt to ethnically cleanse the top half of the enclave as part of the ghastly general's plan, he, along with several members of the hospital staff, including doctors, nurses, medical techs, patients, terrorists of the Israeli occupation forces, stripped them naked and sexually abused them. It took several days before the Israelis even acknowledged that they had indeed kidnapped Dr. Abu Safiya, even though he was last seen walking into an Israeli tank and speaking to a Zionist soldier. That very famous shot. That and the one of him standing in the alley or across from the tank facing it. It wasn't until February that Dr. Abu Safiya, the then acting director of Kamal Adwan Hospital, after the previous incumbent was also abducted in early 2024, was allowed legal counsel weeks, a full 47 days after his abduction. No right to a speedy trial there. The legal counsel revealed that the doctor was, quote, subjected to various forms of torture and inhuman and degrading treatment, unquote. Why? The next significant update on Dr. Abu Safiya came only in July, when his lawyer revealed that he had lost 40% of his body weight and was not in good condition due to relentless physical abuse, as if losing 40% of your body weight wouldn't be enough to cause not good condition. Quote, Dr. Abu Safiya is not okay. On July 14th, following her visit to the doctor's cell in Ophir prison, he's lost over 40 kilograms or 40 stone. 2 stone. 20 kilograms is stone. More than 1/3 of his body weight. Oh my God. At the time of his arrest, he weighed 100 kilograms. Today, he weighs no more than 60. Okay. Hussam recounted harrowing testimony of abuse. All right. He was severely beaten, according to one of his roommates. All right. That his room was specifically raided. He was brutally assaulted in the chest area, sustained severe bruises to the face, head, back, and neck. 30 minutes of beating him. He requested medical care, proper testing, and to be examined by a cardiologist, but of course his request was denied. He suffers from an irregular heartbeat. His glasses were broken, which of course he had just recently even gotten in the first place. He's still wearing winter clothes while enduring starvation, torture, solitary, and total deprivation, buried underground with no exposure to sunlight. Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya, like all Palestinian detainees, is not okay. And let's not, overstate his case as opposed to the hundreds of others that are being held captive without trial, charge, or, it's crazy. And again, it's a systematic attack on the healthcare system, specifically so that they can rehabilitate their wounded. In a petition, all right, Amnesty International has called the doctor's detention part of Israel's systematic targeting of Palestinian health workers. Dr. Abu Safiya's arrest and ongoing arbitrary detention without charges or trial based on the unlawful combatants law is a reflection of Israel's systematic targeting of Palestinian health workers and the decimation of the healthcare system in Gaza in order to inflict conditions of life calculated to bring about the physical destruction of Palestinians. That's called genocide. On the latest extension of his detention, nice rhyming word there, by the occupation's kangaroo courts, Issam Yunus, who is the director of Al-Mizan, a Gaza-based human rights organization, said that Dr. Abu Safiya is being, quote, held as a hostage, unquote, which he is. Yeah. Today's decision to extend Dr. Abu Safiya's detention is completely baseless and further confirms that he is being held as a hostage. Still not charged with any crime. The doctor keeps asking the Israelis why he's being incarcerated. Quote, he's never been charged, was initially denied access to legal counsel, has endured inhumane treatment ever since his abduction, including torture and starvation, which has taken a serious toll on his physical well-being. Man, he sounds like Julian Assange.
Yep.
Dr. Abu Safiya was not allowed to attend in person, but our lawyer said that he was clearly desperate to be released. When he was given the chance to speak, he repeated that he's done nothing wrong and asked the court why he's been detained in the first place. Just to remind people, Palestine Will Be Free wrote an article back in July about how Israel is routinely raping Palestinians in its torture dungeons with receipts. A journalist who was abducted from Tulkarem in West Bank last year has revealed the horrific abuse, including degrading assaults with hard objects amounting to rape and sexual torture, to which Palestinians in Israeli torture dungeons have been routinely subjected to, especially after October 7th. But again, it didn't start October 7th there either. Back to the doctor. Even before his incarceration, Dr. Abu Safiya endured Herculean burdens, both personal and professional, as the steward of northern Gaza's last functioning hospital. In a bid to shut it down, the Israelis besieged Kamal Adwan Hospital for nearly 3 months, dropping bombs on it from drones and wheeled robots, and positioned snipers to shoot anyone entering or leaving the hospital. The indiscriminate bombings in the vicinity of the hospital led to the martyrdom of his son Ibrahim. The 20-year-old had wished to follow in his father's footsteps and study medicine, but you know the Israelis can't allow for any Palestinian doctors. The 20-year-old wished to follow, like I said. His life was cut short. Ibrahim was buried hastily near the hospital. A tearful Abu Safiya led the funeral prayers for his young son. Wow.
Allahu Akbar. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Dr. Abu Safiya himself was injured in one of dozens of attacks in the hospital, sending messages from a hospital bed while grimacing in pain. But the determined doctor never gave in to the demands of the genocide heirs, fulfilling his humanitarian duties while recovering from his own injuries. Just a remarkable individual. That's why they're torturing him. Issuing daily updates on the state of the besieged hospital via his Instagram account, the doctor filmed Israeli drones dropping bombs directly on the hospital and in its vicinity. He captured footage of automated vehicles dropping bombs inside the hospital and made fervent pleas for help when the Israelis bombed the hospital's generators, which powered the oxygen tanks one night.
Yep.
Someone over on Substack saying they're using dogs. And yes, I didn't bring that story, but yes, allegedly they were using dogs to rape the humans, which is so disgusting. 10 months after his abduction, the Israelis have provided no legal basis for Dr. Abu Safiya's continued incarceration. It's because they don't have one. It's also because they don't need to. Israeli impunity has no parallel in history. The occupation forces accused him of being a terrorist and holding a rank in Hamas, but they labeled his hospital a Hamas terrorist stronghold. But to this day, they have not been able to produce a single shred of evidence for their egregious accusations. An honorable civilian, Dr. Abu Safiya, has no business being in prison. He should have long been released. And I will say that, I know Eva Bartlett, friend of the show, also personally knows Dr. Abu Safiya, and everyone that served alongside him says the same thing about this guy. However, the Israelis refused to release him in the prisoner exchanges, quote unquote, earlier this year, and have insisted upon keeping him behind bars even during the ongoing exchange. He has no ties to the resistance. Dr. Abu Safiya's record is public. International humanitarian organizations and numerous doctors like Yipeng Ji have called for his immediate release, but the Israelis remain adamant. I remember we covered the campaign where everyone was holding up the signs, the free Dr. Abu Safiya. I think that was in January or February.
Right.
This is an utter moral outrage. This is yet another message from the Israelis that resistance, even in the form of medical care for the victims of their barbarism, is a punishable crime by torture. The only acceptable Palestinians are those who either leave or die. Everyone else is a quote-unquote terrorist. Dr. Abu Safiya's continued imprisonment is a deliberate act of terror by the Jewish supremacists in Tel Aviv, who want nothing but complete submission and utter annihilation of the Palestinians. And again, that's under the classification of genocide. Dr. Abu Safiya's crime is refusing to abandon the sick and dying, to uphold his Hippocratic oath as a doctor under fire, to remain human in a sea of barbarism. In abusing him, Israelis seek vengeance against a man who bore witness, who refused to look away, who refused to leave or die. The world must not look away either, and we're not. We must bear witness to the gut-wrenching barbarism inflicted on Dr. Abu Safiya and many others, and do everything within our power to help free him and all of them. His predicament is a mirror reflecting the moral rot we're sliding deeper into with each passing day of unchecked Israeli impunity. And again, sadly, as they said that their paid subscriptions have dried up, but this was an outstanding article recapping the story and speaking on behalf of the good doctor, and much appreciated this publication and this article. So thank you, and free Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya right now. Fuck Israel. Free him right fucking now. Like, more war crimes, like I said. And that's what this segment is war, Israel's war crimes this week. Because every week they fucking do this. But this was like they dangled the carrot in front of everyone and got everyone's hopes up that maybe. But like we said last week, his name was on a list, but that was, I think, a list that was submitted by the Palestinians on who they wanted. I don't believe it was ever put on a list by Israel that they had ever intended to give him back. And fuck Israel for that. Because, again, they're just torturing him just to torture him. But we got a lot more fuck Israel.
Yep.
Because a lot happened this week. So this is a publication I am a fan of called Israel-Palestine News. I wish they didn't show stuff from Ryan Grimm because he sucks. But and the whole Drop Site News organization is a problem for me. But they do a daily recap that I thought was excellent, and I'm going to bring a couple of them today. This one was from last Tuesday, the 14th. All right. And it has a very long, extensive list of links and sites and receipts to check out. And it's very much like I remember I was growing up an ESPN fan, and ESPN.com was one of my favorite websites to read and read columnists from. A guy by the name of Buster Olney wrote a Sunday column that had just like kind of odds and ends. It was almost like Caitlin Johnstone notes from the edge of the narrative matrix with just different links. It may be somewhat connected, but also disconnected and just rando stuff. So this one, of course, is Palestinian hostages released into devastation and heartbreak. This was day 5 of the quote-unquote ceasefire. Middle East Eye documenting a freed prisoner who learned that his family were killed just weeks before his release, and documenting his pain. All right. Day 738 of Israel's latest war on Gaza from ifamericans.knew.com. Civil defense workers and loved ones continue to dig out bodies of Palestinians that were buried under the rubble during the war. The number of known starvation or malnutrition deaths stands at 463, including 157 children. Note, only the dead who are brought to the hospitals are even included in the official fatality count. And at this point, most of the dead being recorded have been recovered from under rubble. Others have succumbed to earlier injuries. Here's a scene of a father and child walking past destroyed homes in Sabra. All right, here was a story about Israel killing 7 Palestinians Tuesday in violation of the ceasefire. Again, every ceasefire is Palestinians cease and Israeli fires. If Americans knew refers, right? Hostage exchange news that if Americans knew refers to the imprisoned Palestinians as hostages instead of prisoners for several reasons. They're being held by the Israeli military court system, which human rights groups have characterized as part of an apartheid system. So they hedge that they're all captives. They're all hostages. And they confess under torture that 99.6% of cases end in conviction. It's not really a fair trial. It's a foregone conclusion. Many Palestinians and supporters
it's a kangaroo court.
Yes, they consider the imprisoned to be political prisoners or hostages because they view their arrest as a tool to enforce Israel's occupation and suppress resistance. So we do have that Israel did free nearly 2,000 Palestinian hostages under the Gaza ceasefire deal. And there were a ton of joyous reunions and videos of people who had been imprisoned for years or decades.
And told all of their family members were killed.
Yes.
That kind of stuff.
Right. That's the guy who was told that his family was killed. All right. Right. If you show any support for a terrorist group. Yeah. Israeli drones flew over a gathering of Palestinians in the West Bank as they awaited the arrival of the released hostages, dropping leaflets that read, "We are watching you everywhere. If you show any support for a terrorist group, you will expose yourself to arrest and punishment." Wow. Big Brother is always watching. Right? Of course, the released Palestinians showed signs of starvation and beatings. Most of the Palestinian men released in the West Bank looked to be in bad shape. Their cheekbones jutted out, some bearing the marks of recent beatings, a few unable to walk on their own without being propped up by their relatives. Israel forbade people from celebrating the release on Monday, firing tear gas at family members and journalists waiting near Ofer prison. A flyer distributed by the Israeli military warned again, we're surveilling you everywhere. No Palestinian flags were allowed to be raised because we've covered that before. I know Reef and Colin covered that Palestinian flags are outlawed in Israel. It's against the law.
Yep.
Before Monday's release, over 11,000 Palestinians were held in Israeli prisons, according to statistics from the Israeli NGO Hamoked in October 2025. At least 3,500 of those are held in administrative detention without trial. But let's keep sending them billions of dollars. An Israeli military database has indicated that only a quarter of those detained in Gaza were even classified as fighters. Once a Palestinian captive is released, that's it, right? Well, no. Israel tends to rearrest Palestinians shortly after they're freed in captive swaps. This is another little dirty secret that they don't talk about. Just after October 7th in November of 2023, Israel released 240 Palestinian hostages in a swap for Israeli captives held by Hamas in Gaza as part of a temporary ceasefire deal. Weeks later, Israel rearrested 30 of those 240. We have the freed Israeli hostage saying that food ran low when, of course, aid was blocked, but that they were feeding him well, including giving him chicken, feeding him with their own food. The Israelis certainly aren't doing that.
No.
All right, there's a couple of pictures of Palestinians being released. All right, then, again, they recap Gaza news and headlines. And look at that photo. God almighty. Again, Sabra. Good luck trying to find a place to stay there. No electricity, no running water, no heavy equipment and machinery, and nothing but devastation and destruction all around. There's not a safe structure you can stay in there. If you don't have a tent, where do you sleep?
Right.
That photo was from October 12th, after the ceasefire agreement. God. U.S. military contractors say that they're not finished feeding Gaza amid ongoing uncertainty about the future of a controversial Israel-approved aid distribution scheme. On Monday, one of its lead contractors, UG Solutions, said it will keep working in the region. So they pulled the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, but the people behind it, they're staying. Despite pushback from the Palestinian political parties, I don't even know who they are, and the international aid community, critics said, of course, that in addition to violating humanitarian principles by deployed armed guards, the GHF served as a tool of Israeli policy by forcing Palestinians to make miles-long treks to southern Gaza, during which thousands were shot and others starved to death. Palestinians actually speaking to the AP on Sunday said that at least 3 GHF aid sites had been abandoned as a condition of the ceasefire and hostage handover between Israel and Hamas. In a statement to the propaganda outlet, however, the foundation cast the closure of the sites as a temporary pause. Remember, we covered that last Sunday, that the Israeli newspapers were even reporting that this was not a permanent, anywhere close to a permanent ceasefire,
Right.
and that it was a temporary condition. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz said that they're not finished destroying Gaza, because you can see that they have left some buildings half standing, I guess. And here's a reminder that Hamas did not surrender in this latest ceasefire, quote unquote, whatever deal you want to call this. The Palestinian resistance didn't surrender and didn't agree to disarmament or demilitarization. All right, quote, a nuclear-armed serial killer masquerading as a nation state with the full backing of the United States has failed to impose a surrender on Palestinians wearing Adidas flip-flops, tracksuits, and operating with largely domestically manufactured weapons, said a CIA asset founder of DropSite News. Brief analysis of Trump's Monday statements. Okay, we've got that broken down. Again, there's just so much stuff chock full of these articles, and they go on and on and on. And this is what I find most interesting. They recap, here's what Israelis are reading. And they go to the Israeli newspapers and the Israeli TV, and they tell us what they're saying to their own population. Because very often, what they tell us in the United States and the UK and Canada is a very watered-down version. Because it can't make them seem that they are as barbaric, genocidal, and maniacal as they actually are. But they are. Yeah. Sorry. And then there's, of course, also what we predicted and what Mondo Weiss predicted last week, which was how Israel was going to claim that Hamas was the violator of the ceasefire, which was that the 24 slain hostages still left behind, they haven't been able to deliver them quickly enough because they're buried under rubble. Okay, the scenario Israel had long prepared for has come to pass. Hamas violated the agreement from the very start, announcing the return of only 4 deceased hostages out of the 28 it holds in the Gaza Strip. All right. The breach had become known. Intensive efforts have been underway at every level to compel the terror group to fulfill its commitments. You mean the resistance group that's legal and under UN Geneva Convention decree? Armed resistance, when people are occupied, resistance is justified. Again, in reality, Hamas had indicated from the beginning of the ceasefire that they didn't sign of the possibility that not all the remains of the hostages would be located by their arbitrary deadline. At the same time, Israel violated the ceasefire by killing at least 7 Palestinians in Gaza, while 154 of the promised Palestinian hostages were not released back into their homelands, but were exiled. So just some of the headlines from Israeli media. This is the propaganda that they are subjected to. And it's important to understand how propagandized they are. The Red Cross, returning Israeli hostages' bodies will take time. Some may never be found. The IDF officials are saying that they're recommending the Rafah crossing staying shut until the 24 bodies are returned. Trump earns fresh comparisons to Cyrus the Great as the last living hostages return home. Their narrative is insane. All right. And then, of course, after 2 years of dodging deals, Netanyahu allies claim that he had a plan all along. Which was to get Trump to claim ownership of it. Stories about the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem. And just how Israel is destroying that part of the country. Every day they have an article this in-depth. Again, this was just from October 14th. 1 day's worth. Israeli soldiers torched food, homes, and a critical sewage treatment plant in the wake of the ceasefire agreement. Because, of course they did.
I've been doing more since then. So,
all right. Here are the official statistics, right? The 68,921 killed and 180,000 injured. Likely it's 10 times that. More than 20,000 children and 23,000 women of that 67,000. Again, the Gaza Health Ministry has been destroyed. So therefore, they can't maintain accurate records and counts. Every baby that's born is born right now with no birth certificate and no count. There's no way they could accurately count how many people there are there. Right? At least 80,000 Palestinians and 3,000 Israelis have been killed by someone from the other side since 2000, according to this. And oh, look at that disproportionate number. Even with the 1,300 Israelis that were killed with it throughout 2023, they killed 22,000 Palestinians and another 24,000 and another 22,000. That's the official number. The one on that they can find records of the people that were counted. But I read a tweet today by Hussam Abu Safiya, who was literally documenting family trees of people that Israel was wiping out in real time.
Yeah.
So here was the one from yesterday. Israel massacres family of 11 in Gaza. Ceasefire day 8. All right, in spite of the ceasefire. 29 martyrs arrived at Gaza Strip hospitals over the past 48 hours. In addition, 11 martyrs are under the rubble in the Abu Shaban massacre and have yet to be recovered. Therefore, they were not included in these statistics. Since the ceasefire went into effect on October 11th, now at least 27 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli attacks and 143 have been wounded. And again, every day, Gaza news and headlines, and they have sections. Israel implementing a shoot-on-sight policy at Gaza yellow line. All right, that's more than half of Gaza already. So cross that line, you'll be shot on sight. The line would now be marked on the ground with the aim of warning Hamas militants and Gaza residents, at least they're acknowledging that there are Gaza residents, that breaches or attempts to cross the line will be met with gunfire. They're used to that. But it ain't just breaches across the line, of course. World Food Program said that 9 bakeries are currently operational in all of Gaza to serve 1.5 million remaining people, producing over 100,000 bundles of bread daily, each weighing 2 kilograms and feeding a family of 5 for a day. Around 500,000 people out of Gaza's total population of over 2 million. Well, that's what we expect it was, but we don't know. World Food Program, again run by CIA agent Chef Jose Andres, hopes to increase the number of bakeries to 30 across Gaza. Remember, this is all being run basically by CIA. You have UNRWA calling for shelter supplies to be allowed into Gaza. Again, no tents are there, no blankets. They can't stay warm and they can't stay dry. UNRWA has what's needed, sitting just a few hours away, and has the teams and infrastructure to distribute it. Israeli soldiers reveal thousands of tons of aid buried and burned in Gaza as famine took over the strip. And of course, blaming Hamas for causing the famine. There's a line of trucks that was from August 6th at the Rafah crossing. But tell me how they're not blocking the aid trucks, right? You have the Palestinian factions that continue to search for bodies of Israeli captives in Gaza because they have to deliver them. The footage showed only limited excavation work due to the lack of resources. Of course, they don't have any trucks. They don't have any heavy equipment to dig through rubble. Israel, of course, is not cooperating in the search for captive remains. What a shock. The Israeli government holding its ground, accusing Hamas of knowing where the captives' bodies are or refusing or procrastinating in retrieving those bodies. And that fuels the anger and the pressure domestically. But on the other hand, everyone knew that this was going to be a difficult task. In fact, when Israeli soldiers were detonating tons of explosives to level entire neighborhoods and communities, there were warnings that this was going to complicate the search for the bodies of Israeli captives, and that's exactly what you see. Now, most importantly, Israel is not cooperating with countries that are lending to help to possibly look for those remains. Why wouldn't they want to help recover their own bodies? Turkey, for example, was ready to send 81 experts in the retrieval of bodies, and Israel, of course, has not allowed them to enter. How convenient. It also... whatever that is. Oh, that's this down here. It also has not allowed Turkey to provide equipment, I heard that could possibly facilitate that. Israel gave Hamas a deadline until next Tuesday to hand over all the bodies. Where are the bodies, Garth? All right, despite reports of understanding on both the Israeli and American sides that the search for bodies could take weeks or even months, and that some may never be recovered. So again, more footage of Palestinians returning to their homes. This was on October 10th in Gaza City. 80% of all the buildings are destroyed. And the ones that are left standing are severely damaged and need to be condemned. Gaza authorities accuse Israel of stealing organs from released Palestinian bodies. This is alleged, but we're being told that they're literally returning bodies packed with cotton. Many corpses were missing, including eyes, corneas, and other organs. Palestinian official urged the international community and human rights organizations to investigate and hold Israel accountable, but of course we know they won't. And this was happening before October 7th. Look up Israel harvesting Palestinian organs. This is not a new thing. Go start over on Rumble. 2.2 million started, 1.5 million remaining. That means 700,000 dead. And yes, that is awful, Descent in Bloom. I'm sorry to have to go through all this, but this is reality, and this is the kind of stuff that, like I say in the trailer, in the teaser, this is what corporate media won't show. What they don't want people to see. But we have to see it. All right. Israeli forces shoot and abduct 2 Palestinians near Ramallah. They abduct 5 in Nablus and Hebron and injure others in Bethlehem. Again, remember, there's no Hamas there. This is the West Bank. ICC rejects the Israel appeal bid over the arrest warrants. Good. Right? And so, again, you just go through this on a daily basis and you shake your head. Here's what Israeli media is telling their people today, that Witkoff and Kushner on Israel's strike in Qatar, Trump felt like the Israelis were getting a little bit out of control. A little bit.
A little bit.
Fuck Israel.
A little bit out of control. It's like they didn't get their cookie and nap, so they're having a tantrum.
Okay, this one's incredible. The State Department says the United States has informed the guarantor nations of the Gaza peace agreement of the credible reports indicating an imminent ceasefire violation by Hamas against the people of Gaza. This planned attack against Palestinian civilians would constitute a direct and grave violation of the ceasefire agreement that they never agreed to, and undermine the significant progress achieved through mediation efforts that they weren't invited to participate in. The guarantors demand Hamas...
How many of you kids in the chat know that they didn't sign this agreement? They didn't do that.
The guarantors demand Hamas uphold its obligations under the ceasefire terms by decree. Should Hamas proceed with this attack, measures will be taken to protect the people of Gaza and preserve the integrity of the ceasefire. So now, Israel is protecting the people of Gaza from Hamas? The United States and other guarantors remain resolute in our commitment to ensuring the safety of civilians. Palestinian civilians, they won't even say maintaining calm on the ground and advancing peace and prosperity for the people of Gaza and the region as a whole. War is peace. Professor Saeed Mohammed Marandi, the genocidal U.S. and Zionist regimes want more blood. Middle East Observer, USA, measures will be taken to protect the people of Gaza. Lol. So they're restarting the war under the pretext of protecting Gaza now? By the way, war is restarting, but not the genocidal war. It'll be like in Lebanon. War to prevent reconstruction, and war on the resistance fighters and their families. Much less pressure and killing, but war nonetheless. Fuck Israel. But we've got more. Remember how Israelis claim that that Palestinians use civilians as human shields? Here's one.
Yep.
A video of Israeli settlers using a baby to block a truckload of humanitarian aid to go to Gaza.
Jesus Christ.
This is real.
חטופים חללים עדיין שם. אין שום סיבה בעולם שאנחנו נעביר סיוע לחמאס.
They're saying prayers.
אין סיבה. אם חמאס מפר את ההסכם, אנחנו לא צריכים לקיים אותו.
They're just keeping the baby there.
אנחנו לא צריכים לחזק את חמאס, אנחנו לא צריכים לקחת בזה חלק, שום סיוע לא צריך לעבור עד שכל אחינו ישובו לקבורה באדמתם, בחיק משפחתם. זה שקר, זה שקר שהם לא יודעים איפה הגופה של הדר גולדין, וזה שקר שהם לא יודעים איפה החיילים. 11 חטופים
Disgusting. Fuck Israel. And fuck the Israeli civilians that support this. Okay. Now this one, if you got a weak stomach, I totally understand you might want to get a cup of coffee, because this is going to be a few minutes and it's going to get really graphic, and I'm sorry. But this, again, needs to be seen. Indie Media Award honoree Richard Medhurst brought this tweet with photos. I don't know if we're live, where we're live. I know we're live on YouTube and on Substack, probably on Rumble. Thank you for everyone who's sticking with us through these challenges. But Richard Medhurst brings this tweet. Israel tortured and mutilated these Palestinians so badly that their bodies are unrecognizable. A public appeal has been set up in Gaza, showing photos of some of the remains on a screen in the hopes of some people can identify them or recognize missing family members. So here's a picture of one of those remains on screen with people sitting around, standing from a picture from the front of the stage, looking at the crowd of people identifying the remains. This is real. This happened. And now I'm going to show you one of the most horrific pictures that I think I've ever seen. I'm sorry, but I have to. Run over by a tank. Notice the track marks. Notice that he's bound on the neck. Notice that his hands are tied behind his back, zip tied, and that he's naked. This is what Israel does. This is barbaric. This is disgusting. And this isn't the only one. Okay. So I'm surprised Twitter's even allowed that up as long as they have. I'm sorry, but we had to, because fuck Israel. They did that. Here's another one. I'm Kathy, Manufacturing Dissent. We've talked about her before. We've covered some of her posts and videos. She says, I'm just speechless. I don't know how Palestinians are able to endure so much grief and pain. This was, I believe, his family. His neck showed marks of hanging. His legs were crushed by tank tracks. The family of martyred Palestinian hostage, Mahmoud Ismail Shabbat, 34 years old, from northern Gaza, identified his body after it was held by the Israeli occupation for nearly 2 years. His body bore clear signs of torture. His hands and feet were tied, his face disfigured, and bullet wounds scattered across his body. His family recognized him by the scar left from a previous head surgery. Where is the world? His mother cried. Our hostages returned, tortured, and broken, while theirs are received with food and water and respect.
تعبير بشكل اصابات طقش في الوجه جرح الرجلين من الجنازير اليدين مكلبشات اصابه في الراس عازمينه زي عدم من حبل على ركبته.
انا جيت اتاكد لانه في عمليه في راسه. عنده عمليه هنا في عمليه هيك احد على راسه دانه اليمين. تعرفت عليه وعرفت وخدته. كلبش من هذا ما محطوط عليه حبل اظني. وبعدين هاي ما بكلبش ومطبوخ طق.
Handcuffed and shot.
عريان عريان.
ليش هيك؟ اما هم اسراهم بخبوهم معززين مكرمين ولابسين ومتلبسين
well dressed, fed, given something to drink. They give the Israeli captives their own food that they are being starved from.
Yeah.
And then there's this story. Holy shit. You notice that this guy has no eyes.
Yep.
I was brutally tortured inside Israeli jails. They electrocuted my eyes so that I lost them. How is this not the lead story on every news broadcast around the world? 28-year-old Mahmoud Abu Faul lost both his eyesight and leg to Israeli brutality. His leg was amputated after a 2015 airstrike, and he later went blind from severe torture and electric shocks in prison after being abducted from Kamal Adwan Hospital last year, as Dr. Abu Safiya was stationed at. After 8 months of unimaginable suffering, he was released blind, homeless, and living in a tent. All he asks now is the chance to travel abroad for treatment, wishing he could see his family again, even with one eye. Just disgraceful.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I think this is what you... And then on top of it, there was this video, I thought I had it, that you had sent me.
It's right underneath it. It should be.
Is it? Oh, there it is. Okay. For those questioning his story, here's his own voice. Now, what had happened was Israel decided to have a little game and use AI to put eyes on this cat and say that Pallywood was lying about this whole story and that he actually was never tortured and has eyes and can see just fine. You're being misled and lied to. So Gaza Notifications puts up a video. For those questioning Mahmoud's story, here's his own voice. In this video, Mahmoud Abu Faul recounts how he lost his eyesight under severe torture and electric shocks inside Israeli prisons. These are not claims, they're lived realities of countless Palestinians enduring systematic abuse. Denying survivors' testimonies doesn't erase their pain, it only exposes the cruelty of those who try to silence them. So we got to give this guy a minute and change.
بعديها لو فقدت بصري بعد تقريبا ساعتين صارت هي معي صار عيوني يدخلوا في بعض. انا الاسير المحرر محمود ابو فول من شمال غزه تعرضت للتعذيب اكثر من مره. ظروف كانت صعبه جدا علي من ناحيه انه انا بدي مثلا حد يعيني اوصل حالي على
Get to the bathroom is a challenge. This incident was very difficult for me. I would imagine so, yeah. It's an outrage.
لكن للأسف الإشي طوّل. بوجه رسالة وناشد العالم أجمع توقف إلى جانبنا. جانب وجانب كل أسير فلسطيني وكل جريح فلسطيني بيعاني. لأنه الآن في غزة لم يتوفر علاج إلنا بالمرة. لزقات عينين إحنا هنا اليوم.
Even dressings for my eyes are extremely difficult to find.
كل شيء معوض.
By design, by Israel's design.
ما يفقدوا من أعضاء جسد. نفسي وأمنية حياتي.
I wish in life to be able to see that's all around me, especially my parents, who was afraid I would be missing. Awful. Awful. Just go ahead. Stand by that. Justify murdering people and blinding people. Fuck Israel. And fuck anyone that supports that shit. Sorry, that was an exceptionally long fuck Israel segment, but again, we got to do this every week because they keep doing this and it needs to be documented, and so few people are getting into the weeds to cover because they're doing so many different things that it's so hard to cover it all. So thank you for sticking with us. I apologize that it's so brutal, but that's their fault, not mine. I'm just showing their brutality. But if you're able to, and it means, please support independent media like this that does show you the stories that corporate media won't show you. Cash App, $, Indie News Network. co-fi.com/Indie News Network. PayPal.me/Indie News Network. At IndieNewsNow.com, that's our self-hosted website. Over at INNNewsletter.com, we'll be live there in about an hour. And at IndieMediaToday.com, where we've been live right now. Thank you over on Substack, everyone, for sticking with us as my internet keeps going down and this stream keeps dropping and then picking back up immediately afterwards. So if you see another hesitation, another pause, just stick with us. It picks back up. If it doesn't, we're recording and all the clips will be up this week at IndieMediaToday.com and at the INN YouTube. All right. Jacqueline Jack, does the Geneva Convention, as useless as it is, apply to armed personnel only? What protections do civilians have? Yes, they're absolutely protected under that, but Israel is ignoring the Geneva Convention.
Yeah, but they don't do shit. Yeah.
More war crimes that go
and
without justice. And the fucking Hague ain't doing nothing. Hague's already called it a genocide. Hasn't actually done anything about it. Go start, fuck Israel.
So
support independent media because we need it more than ever. We'll see you next week. Love you, fam. Thanks, everyone.
Hasta la vista, baby. I'll be back.
No! We just fucking lost the stream!
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days, and I still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to me, but God, it's so hard to say. And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe? say